Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you had a good week of training last week. It's about 5:30 in the morning. Make that 5:23 in the morning, California time, and we need to get through these real quick. So let's run it down. All right. So I hope you got your pens and your paper because we got to go. First up, Bitcoin. Bitcoin was showing some nice little pullback this morning. Had a big red bar yesterday when the Thinkorswim started giving us some trading on the Bitcoin, and our futures were selling off quite a bit. Put in this nice little tail here, as you can see right now, before the market opens up this morning, January 27th, 2025. We're pushing up a little bit into the morning. Yeah, pulled back right around down into here, which in the past has been an area of resistance. I'm not gonna bring it in. An area of resistance and support. As you can see, we popped up here, hit this channel, bounced back down, popped up to here, stopped, kind of tried to get over a little bit, pull back. So this area has been kind of, I'd say, like our middle part between here and here, or 50% between this high move and this low here. All right, so this is about our 50% here. So keep an eye on that area. If we get below, we're gonna come back down maybe and retest this area. And if we stay above it, we're gonna try to retest this area and go up above. And maybe try to get above this 108 again. All right, but right now, this morning it looks like it wants to open up a little bit higher, and maybe go back and retest our channel here, this blue channel, not the red one. But we were getting back into this red one, so have to keep an eye on that and see if we want to continue to sell off down into here. But currently it looks like it's going to open up at around, I don't know, 101,000 maybe. We'll have to see it at 6:30 when the market opens. All right, of course we got Bitcoin USD, and same thing, only not as drastic as the futures. All right, Bitcoin USD looks pretty good. Nice little W is putting in there. Got a nice little pullback, trying to make a little J hook to pop up through. So we'll have to see what happens with that in the next couple of days. Next up is oil, and oil continues to sell off because drill baby drill means more oil in the market, which means the dollar or the price of oil should go down. So if you want to play the inverse, look for drip. Next up is gold, and gold got a little bit of a pullback yesterday and still pulling back into this morning pre-market. But we'll see what happens with that. It's still bullish and looking like it wants to continue going higher, but we may come back and retest this support area before heading higher. Next up is natural gas. Natural gas dropped off a little bit, put in this doji. So we have to keep an eye on that. This doji opened up below our 20-day. So we have to keep an eye. If this rolls over and forces it down, as you can see, it respects the 20. So if it gets below this 20 and the 20 rolls over, then we can expect to come back down into this area around $3 on natural gas. Next up is NASDAQ, and NASDAQ put in a nice fat red bar after this fat doji here and tried to sell off a little bit. In the morning in the pre-market, it's down around here somewhere, trying to push back up. So it got back above this support area. We have to see if it stays there. But that's a nice little pullback right there, a nice little sell-off. Took out all these bars. But that doesn't really mean much when you're talking about the NASDAQ. You have to pay attention to where it opens up here. See if it opens up down here and comes down into here. Just doesn't hold, and look out below. Next up is silver, and silver is finding some support here with the trade winds. So keep an eye on this one. It's still in this channel heading down, but it's still bullish. Okay, so until we get below these moving averages here, we're still bullish in silver. Next up is the Dow, and the Dow, same thing as the Nasdaq and gold, and oil. Well, not oil, but the Nasdaq and gold. 2-bar pullback, not a bad sign. Nice little tail into the moving averages. We have to wait and see how we open up, and if we want to get back above this support area, turn resistance. All right, if we can't get above it and close above it and open up above it, then we're probably going to head back down into here somewhere. Next up is corn, and corn is doing a nice little pullback. It's still bullish, trying to close these gaps. So look for maybe another day coming back down into here to the 20-day. It's like it wants to check back in. It's been respecting the 20 days. We have to see what happens once the 20-day gets up here to the support area. We'll probably find some support and continue higher. Next up is Apple. And Apple still looks a little weak, but on the pre-market it's going to open up higher. So we have to keep an eye on that. We got our moving averages rolling over. 20 days coming down here to act as resistance. We got this overhead resistance at 237, so keep an eye on Apple. And Apple's earnings are on the 30th of this month, so we got earnings coming up on Apple in today's the 27th, so the next 3 days. Earnings on Thursday in Apple, so keep an eye on that for that catalyst. Alright, next up is AEM, Eagle Mines Limited, and gold is pulling back, so expect a little pullback into here somewhere on this one until gold settles where it's going to go, and then look for maybe a push up, but it's still bullish. But right now we got these indecision bars up here big time, so keep an eye on that one. Next up is Affirm. And Affirm, we're looking for some support right down in this area at 52.97. Pre-market is around that area. Got as low as 52.44, but that's pre-market, so we have to wait and see what happens on this one. We're going to open up below or above. We still have this support area here, which was a previous high, which is why it's white. And we have to wait and see what happens with that one. Okay, so alright, that's what we got on Affirm. Next up is AGI. I'm running through these, trying to run through these pretty fast this morning because we ain't got much time before the market opens. Alright, so next up AGI, Alamos Gold, and can expect that one to turn around and reverse direction because we know gold's reversing this direction. So we have to wait and see what happens when the market opens. Next up, AMD, and AMD came down, found some support here at 115. I was trying to push back up, put in this fat doji on Friday, and it looks like pre-market is going to open up back down around here. So we're going to have a gap down, so we got a gap to fill, which means we'll probably hit down in here and go back up. Though we have to wait and see what happens with that because we know the market's opening up, and so far everything's looking kind of weak, even the Nasdaq. So we'll see what happens with AMD. And also AMD, February 4th is their next Tuesday is going to be AMD's earnings report. We'll have to see what catalyst they have for us next Thursday. So there's going to be a lot of earnings reports coming up. We're getting into earnings season, so expect some volatility in some of these stocks. We're going to it's going to either pop high or pop low. So be careful. But don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And next up is Amazon. And Amazon is getting above this 233 area, which has been resistance in the past, and now it's acting as some support. Put in a little doji here, so expect some trouble with Amazon on this doji when we open up. Looks like pre-market we sold off, and we came back down to retest this area. that is a pretty good drop in the pre-market on Amazon. So be careful with that. Put in a pointer here back up to this 233, but we don't know what's going to happen for sure with that. But looks like we're probably going to open up down in here somewhere on Amazon. So I hope you didn't go too heavy up here thinking we were going to continue to run, because it looks like we're probably going to open up down here and you're probably kind of feeling some pain this morning. Alright, next up, unless you're long and you're not worried about it, next up is, Amazon's got earnings on the 6th, which is next Thursday. Alright, next up is ARK, and ARK looks like it's going to open up a little lower this morning also. A little bit of a gap down in here somewhere at around $59 possibly. We don't know yet because the market hasn't opened. We're still an hour ahead of the market opening, but pre-market looks like we're going to be down around here somewhere, and then we have to wait and see what happens from there. Are we going to stay in this channel and continue lower and come back down and retest this 54? Or are we going to come back and retest the top of this channel? Alright, but right now ARK is looking like it wants to sell off in the pre-market, but it's still bullish because we still have our moving averages pointing up heading this way, but showing some weakness this morning along with all the other majors. Next up is Cell or AirCell, and AirCell ran into some trouble with the 200, and but it's trying to move into a bullish market. Nice consolidation in here and then pushing up. Nice little pause here and continue to push up. So we might be having just a little pause here. We want to open up higher and push up and come back for some support in this area here at around $7, or maybe we just continue to run higher. But with all the markets, all the majors looking kind of weak this morning, we have to wait and see what happens with that fat doji. We open up lower and we'll probably pull back into our trade wins and settle in before trying to go higher. Next up is American Waterworks. American Waterworks put in that big bar on the 22nd. Then they put in this little hammer and this, I want to call it a gravestone, but it has that tail on it, so it doesn't really look as much as a gravestone as it does a upside down hammer or doji. But look for some support in this area here on, oh wait a minute, pre-market we open up, it's going to look like we're hitting about 118 right now, so we're going to be down around here somewhere. Maybe down to the low of this pointer right here at 118.74. But look for it's in a down market right now anyway. It's bearish anyhow, so we may continue to sell off in American Waterworks and come back down into 113 to find some support. But it's got a dividend coming out on the 7th next week, and then it has earnings on the 19th. Okay, so keep an eye on American Water. Next up is BITA, inverse of Bitcoin, and currently it looks like it wants to open up at around $22, which still is inside this channel here, or this range, but Bitcoin showing some weakness. So we'll have to see what happens when at the open, but currently it is sitting at about $22. Next up is BOIL, B-O-I-L, and B-O-I-L, the natural gas ETF, is showing a little bit of a pullback to our moving averages here. Look for some support in here somewhere. We know natural gas was looking like it wanted to sell off, if I remember correctly. And yes, natural gas is below our 20, so if we open up below this fat doji right here, we're probably going to continue to sell off in natural gas. Look for some support at around $3. That doesn't hold. Next stop is 285, 250-ish. Back down into our moving averages here. Our trade wins. Alright, but currently natural gas is looking like a sell. Alright, so that would put us back to our boil, which is most likely going to open up lower and continue lower. Next up is Beyond, the best meat you can get if you like that kind of meat. Looks like it's running into some trouble here at about $4.17. Put in this rejection bar here, rejection bar here. Tried to push up because of our moving average is looking for some support in here. So we have to see how we open up on this one, but currently we got overhead resistance at around $4.20 or so. Maybe call it $4.50. Alright. Yeah, let's call it $4.50 up here. Alright, but it's still got to get through this $4.20, $4.30 area. So that's Beyond Meat, and it's bearish. Next up is Cake, Cheesecake Factory, and Cheesecake Factory in the pre-market is down around here, around 50 bucks. So keep an eye on that. Back into our moving average here. See if we can find some support in this area and go back and retest about 50% of our high, previous high, and our recent low, our recent high and our recent low, or actually this will be a recent high. So previous high and recent low, and then our current high is at 52. So look for it open up down in here, find some support, go back and retest this recent high of 52.90. But if we can't get up above this $52 area and close for some support, then we're going to continue to sell off down into here. Next up is Cat or Caterpillar, and Caterpillar has pushed up higher, but pre-market we're going to open up lower, maybe back down into this area in here. Look for a little pullback in Cat, find some support and maybe push higher. Got some overhead resistance in here at around $408. Okay, we ran into some trouble, and we got our previous high up here at 418, or our most recent high at 418. So that's Cat. It's still currently bullish, so we have to wait and see what happens. But you see it's been running and it's been gapping. So it's kind of getting away from everything. So it's going to have some time to recover before going back and trying to push through this 418. So look for some red bars here soon in Cat. And we got earnings coming up on the 30th. Alright, so I think we established 30th as being on Thursday. Alright, so next up is Canopy Growth, and Canopy Growth was trying to push up, hit about $2.33, but then the pre-market is selling off back down in the 218 area. So it'll probably open up back down around in here somewhere. We got the moving averages ruling over. So Canopy Growth is still in a bear market and is trying to get some footing, but currently it's still bearish, so be careful with that. Next up is Comcast, and Comcast found some support down around $36.30, putting in some nice push-up bars, but not enough to really get us up too high to make us feel comfortable. And in the pre-market, it's starting to sell off a little bit at about $37.31. So look for some support in this area in here on Comcast, and hopefully it'll support us in here and give us maybe a red bar, and then push up. All right, so look for a 2-bar pullback and then maybe a push higher. We got our earnings coming up also on the 30th. So there's a lot of them coming out on the 30th. So watch out, the 30th is going to be volatile. So keep an eye on that. You're going to have to pick one you want to try to get in unless you want to try to play them all for that pop or drop. All right, so watch out. Comcast. It's still bearish. Next up is Chipotle Mexican Grill, which is headed into a bearish market. If we open up lower and continue lower, then we're going to head on down here somewhere, try to find some support. But so far it's been support in this area in here at around $55. So if $55 doesn't hold on Chipotle, look for it to come back down to 47. All right. And our earnings on Chipotle is going to be on February 4th, which is next Tuesday. All right. Next up is Centerpoint Energy, and Centerpoint Energy, and the pre-market is popping higher, but we know our energy stocks are, oil was selling off, and we know natural gas is selling off, so be careful with Centerpoint Energy. Because even our oil, so Centerpoint Energy, right now it looks bullish, but we don't know if it's going to stay bullish. Okay. But currently it looks like it wants to open up higher at about $32.99 up here somewhere. Alright, which means we're going to have a window open up higher. And we got this overhead resistance right here that rejected us. So if it does open up here, expect a little sell-off on you. Alright, so don't get tricked on Centerpoint. Next up is corn. And I think we established that corn had a little pullback coming in, so we're going to pull back into here somewhere, find some support, and maybe head higher. We have to see how the futures act before we know what we're going to actually do on our trading here in corn. But currently our futures are looking like they want to pull back into here for some support and then go higher. So wait, keep an eye on this one. When you find some support and get another green bar to head up, then you can jump back into our actual corn trade, and be sure that we're going to be continue higher. Next up is CRSR, Corsair Gaming, and Corsair Gaming is opening up down around $8.73 looks like. So we're going to have a little sell-off coming back into here. Maybe we can find some support in this area and go back and retest this recent high. Alright, so we got a new high on Corsair. Alright, okay, so we want to get back up through there and get above it, come back, check for support before heading higher. Excuse me. Excuse me. Had to get a little sip of my coffee there. My morning cup of Joe. Alright, next up is CSWC, Capital Southwest. And Capital Southwest ran into some resistance at this area here where it had gapped down. Got a nice little pullback into the 8 SMA. And let's see what happens with this one, how we open up. Pre-market, we're going to open up lower, so keep an eye on that. And Capital Southwest has earnings coming up on the February 3rd. Alright, next up is DKL, Deleek Logistics. And we got two little dojis happening on Deleek, which is not a good sign right now, but it might be a decent pullback into here. We got our 8 SMA and 9 SMA coming in here to support. We got the $44 area for some support, and our 20 coming up. We're definitely still in our bullish market, but we are having some pullbacks. And this also is an energy stock, so we know energy is looking weak right now. Next up is DRIP, and DRIP is pushing higher because we know our oil and gas is going lower. So keep an eye on that. All right, and it's making a new higher low. Alright, so we got a low here, and a new higher low. Alright, and a higher high. So maybe going higher on the inverse of oil and gas. Next up is dust, and dust is trying to put in a nice, it's trying to head higher because we know gold is pushing back, but look for some resistance in this area, and then another head back down to retest this low of $53 for support. Alright, and this is the bear ETF, so this is the inverse of gold. Okay, so gold goes down, this goes up, this goes down, gold goes up. Next up is EXE, Expand Energy, and Expand Energy probably going to open up around $104, which will put it back down around this moving average here, somewhere in this area. If that is the case, then keep an eye. It might be a nice little healthy pullback, retesting this area in here for some support before heading back up. So if we don't get some support in here somewhere at around 104, then expect a retest of this 101 area before heading higher. Okay, so we got our moving averages up. We're definitely in a bull market on Expand Energy, but as we know, the energy stocks are looking kind of weak this morning. Our majors are looking weak. Next up is Fastly, and Fastly had a little pullback in the pre-market to about 956, but it put us about half, or actually the low portion of this bar here, almost taking this bar out when we open up. So we'll see what happens with Fastly. It is trying to be in a bull market, but our trade winds are flat, so these flat trade winds might almost maybe take it back down into this $9 area before trying to retest. But currently it's going to open up, well, pre-market right now it looks like it may want to open up lower, but we won't know until the market opens, right? That's right. Next up is Grayscale Bitcoin. Grayscale Bitcoin dropped down below our $79 area here because of the we know Bitcoin had a little bit of a sell-off this morning, or yesterday, and so we'll see how we open up and how we're going to continue, if we're going to continue lower or go back up and retest. But currently Bitcoin is looking weak this morning. Next up is GME, and GME is going to open up around $26. So if you are riding this one up, I hope you got out up here somewhere, and planning on getting back in down here somewhere, right? But right now GME is opening up at around $26.40, which will put us in this area somewhere. So it hasn't taken out this pointer yet, but it's definitely going to open up below our $27 area, which hasn't really done much of anything, but did act as some support at one point right there, right? So it may be an area of support slash resistance, but we don't know if it's a major area yet. But it does seem to be respecting it, so we have to give it some props. Alright, next up is Google, and Google is going to open up down around here somewhere. So hope you weren't getting too excited about this move, because it's giving it back. It's going to open up down here somewhere, and maybe you might want to come up and close that window, or maybe it might leave it open, sell off, come back down in here and reconcile this window down here. Alright, so keep an eye on Google. We may be coming back to close this window before heading higher. Right now this morning, pre-market showing some weakness. Next up is Gush, and Gush, oil gas bull ETF. So we know the bull oil and gas is pulling back this morning, so be careful with this one. We may continue to get a sell-off in it if oil continues to sell. Next up is JDST, which is the Gold Miners Bear ETF, which also we know gold is pulling back a little bit, so we expect a pop on this one to go higher. until gold decides what it wants to do. It's got these overhead resistance of the trade winds, and it's in a bear market, so we have to see what happened with gold. But gold was looking, still looking bullish, but it's going to have a little pullback this morning. Okay, so we maybe find some support in here somewhere before trying to retest this previous high. All right, our recent high. Okay, but right now gold is looking kind of weak, so wait for a sign of support and a sign of that gold wants to continue to go back up higher before. Don't try to anticipate this. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't try to anticipate it. Wait for a sign that it's not going to go any lower before jumping in it and trying to ride the wave back up. All right. What was that? Dust. All right. Bear ETF. Currently, it's got this little doji right here, some indecision, and we're going to open up higher. So it may want to push back up into here somewhere, put in a little W or something weird like that. But yeah. So keep an eye on the weakness in gold, current weakness in gold. And expand energy, I think we already talked about. So what happened to me? Gush, where we were at? Google, yeah, Gush. And which was oil, then JDST, I think where we left off. Yeah. Alright, there's our little doji. We're gonna open up higher. So look for a continued push higher on gold. I mean on JDST, the inverse of gold. The bear ETF. Next up is Jill, J-I-L-L, and J-I-L-L popped up here somewhere this morning in the pre-market, $29. We should put it up here, right around in here somewhere. Alright. Which I got my little mark here because I think I wanted to see if we're going to hit this area and then sell off again because we got this really big pointer up here up to the $30 area on Jill. But we know we had some resistance up here that was pretty strong. Alright, but we had to pop through that resistance. It looks like we're going to pop through it and try to go back and retest this $30 area. So maybe a good shorting opportunity coming up in Jill. Keep an eye on it because we know that it ran into some trouble trying to get up through this $30 area. Alright, and it's in a bearish market, so if we get this pop up, expect it to, and it holds. Pre-market is at $29. If it holds up until market opening and it stays up here, it's still will be in this bearish market, so be careful with this one. It may want to pop up here and then suck you all back down into this void down in here somewhere. But currently it's in a bear market, so be careful with Jill, J-I-L-L. Next up is JNUG, Junior Gold Bull ETF, and we know gold has a weakness showing right now, so be careful with this one. It's sitting here flat in the trade winds, and so if we open up lower, we're probably going to head lower on JNUG. Next up, KGC, Kingross, which is another gold. And doji here, so we open up below this doji, expected to want to head lower and retest this area in here somewhere. We got our 20-day coming up, which may act as support like it did here. Alright, and push it back up, but we have to wait and see because we know our big boy is selling off. Next up is KSS, Kohl's Corporation, and Kohl's was trying to push up, but then it ran into some trouble here at around $14. Currently it wants to open up around $13.37, so we have to see what happens with Kohl's. Maybe we might get a nice little toolbar or pullback in here and then push up and retest, or maybe it can come back down here to $12 for some support before trying to go higher. But currently it's still in the bear market on Kohl's. Has this window up here that needs to reconcile, so at some point we're probably going to come back up here and shut this window at 17.45. We have to see what happens with Kohl's. Next up, LABD, which is the bear ETF for biotech, and it looks like it wants to continue selling off. It's going to pop up here in the pre-market about $7. So we have to see what happens with this Bear ETF. We know that if this goes higher, we know our LABU is going to continue to sell off, and it's going to open up lower and maybe push down even lower. And in the pre-market, it's taking this little area out right here. All right, so we have to see what happens when the market opens. If we open up higher, we want to go back and retest these, get through these trade wins. If not, then look out for some support back down around 82, which actually, yeah, look for some support around $82. Next up is LAC, Lithium America Corp, and it's in a bearish market, and looks like it wants to push lower. So we have to see if our 150-day moving average finds some support in here and then retest, or if we're going to continue to sell off, retest this 290, and if that doesn't hold, look out below. And they have earnings coming up on 3/13, and I don't even think they've gone online yet. Lithium Americas Corp. So GM's heavily invested in them, but of course, the president already said we're gonna keep making engines. We're gonna keep making engines, manufacturing, and we want to manufacture our cars here in America too. So all you people that have gone out and decided to buy you a Toyota electric car or a Honda electric car, you might have been duped again like the rest of us. Every time we turn around, they want to do something different. So California says it's going to be all electric. I don't know if that's going to remain, since they made Newsom look like a fool, but he wasn't very cool in my book anyway because of what he did to the Bay Area. But we're going to see what happens with that electric car business, because I think he's out, and hopefully they'll get somebody in that actually cares about the state. So what we got? LAC, electric cars. We're going to see with that lithium trade. But don't let it fool you. Eventually, we're gonna, 4 years of drill baby drill, and then we got a new president coming, right? And depending on who we put in the office at that point, either they're gonna continue the business of President Trump, or they're gonna continue the business of the Democrats with giving away everything that we work hard for. Or that some of us work hard for. Anyway, next up is Lakeland Industries, and it put in this, it gapped down big time right here. It's at 25 to 23, so a $2 gap on Lakeland, and put in this little doji here. And we have to see how we open up. If we open up higher, or we can go back and try to close this window, or if we're going to open up lower and make another mad dash to the ground. Next up is Microsoft, and Microsoft is trying to open up down around here somewhere, drop down to about $410 in the pre-market. So it may open up below this 428, which is going to be an area of resistance. So we have to see what happens with Microsoft. It has its earnings report on the 29th, which is, what's that, Tuesday? Wednesday. Earnings on Wednesday on Microsoft. Alright. So maybe we're going to pull back down in here somewhere so we can get some momentum and blast off on earnings day. Make a real show of it. Boom. Come down in here, get some, boom. We'll see. Hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, okay? Now, check it out. So it's about 6:03 this morning. I'm gonna come back this evening and do another video. Alright, so like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because this evening I'm going to come back and go over all this stuff over again. This just kind of give you something in the pre-market in this morning as to what to kind of expect. So instead of going through my whole list, I'm just going to hit the ones that I think you might want to hear about, and then we'll call her a morning. Alright, so let's get it. Next up is MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is going to open up lower somewhere down in here somewhere. So if it continues to head down, look for some support at 286. If that doesn't hold, then look out below. Next up is Netflix. And Netflix is going to open up around 950, which will put it just down here somewhere. So we still have this window that it opened because it had to gap up through this area of resistance. Gapped up. And we have to see how it opens up. Pre-market, it looks like it wants to open up a little bit higher, right in through here somewhere. Right? So that's lower than this bar here. So, but we haven't taken this bar out yet. So we have to see how we open up. The pointer puts us down around here somewhere. So we may be looking for a pullback into here, and Netflix closes window before trying to go higher. And its earnings is. Wait a minute, it had its earnings, and earnings wasn't too bad, but we have to see what happens with today and how we open. And looks like we may come back in here and shut this window before going higher, but we're still bullish on Netflix. Alright. Next up is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is going to open up at around $122 this morning, which will put us down here. Wow, down here somewhere. So that's quite a sell-off in NVIDIA. So which is going to put us into the trade winds, which may make us look really bearish on NVIDIA. So we have to see how it happens when we open up and how we trade today. Got earnings coming up on NVIDIA and February 26th. So it's got another what's that, month or almost a month to try to make itself look better, but currently NVIDIA is looking kind of weak. Going to open up down around here somewhere. Alright, and we got that overhead window that is going to open up, so that may give us something to work for. Alright, so that's NVIDIA getting into the bearish trade winds almost. Still bullish because we're still above our trade winds, but looking kind of weak right now. Next up is Oxy, which is selling off because drill baby drill. Maybe want to come down in here to $45 for some support. Might be a good shorting opportunity here for some of you, or if if you're long the stock, then you can buy you a nice put to hedge your position. But right now, trade winds are forcing it down. They're still in the bear market, so watch out for Oxy. Next up is Qualcomm, and Qualcomm ran into some resistance again at this area at 176, selling off this morning. Look for some support around here. That's where I bought some. So if it opened up, looks like we went down below that too, 163 in here somewhere. So look for some support about a halfway point here in Qualcomm, and see what happens. Alright, next up, pre-market looks like it back up in here somewhere around 173. So keep an eye on Qualcomm. But right now it's looking kind of weak, and it put in this dark cloud right here. But currently it looks like it wants to open up higher. So we may come back down into here, find some support, and go higher. We'll see what happens with Qualcomm. Next up is Rocket Lab. And Rocket Lab was put in a nice big bar here, man. I thought that bad boy was going to just continue to run higher, but it didn't. It ran into some resistance at 33, and it looks like it's going to open up around 29. So we'll see what happens with Rocket Lab. But we may come back into here, find some support, continue higher. But it's still bullish, but we still have this window open down here that may need to be reconciled. Next up is the Russell, And the Russell is trying to find some support down around in this area here. Still bullish, so keep an eye on the Russell. We did have a window open here on the Russell at 2251 that needs to be reconciled down around 22. Okay, so keep an eye on that. The RWM, which is the inverse of the Russell, or the bear ETF to the Russell, is trying to open up higher this morning, because we know the Russell itself was put in this fat doji and probably going to open up a little bit lower, so we have to see what happens. Is the Russell going to do like the rest of them and kind of sell off, come back down here and shut this window before going higher? We have to wait and see. But currently the Russell is starting to look a little bit weak. Next up is the S-Dow, which is the inverse of the Dow. We know the Dow was selling off, so the S-Dow should be going higher. Let's see if the Dow is still selling off before the market opens here. And it is still looking a little weak this morning, so we'll have to see what happens with that. We're going to continue to sell off in the Dow, but we know we got our moving averages coming up to support. We know it's in a bull market, so that remains to be seen. All right, I'm going to cut it right there. That's going to be it for this morning. I'll give you Tesla real quick. Tesla, bear market, looks like it wants to sell off, and it's going to open up around 379, so be careful with Tesla. Tesla is one of those ones that will surprise you and go either direction at any time, but right now it's starting to look kind of weak, so careful with Tesla. And it has its earnings on the 29th. Alright, so that's going to be it for this morning. I'm going to do another one this evening, and we'll get a better idea how Monday is going to take us into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Alright, so that's it. I hope you enjoy what I gave you this morning. I hope you got your trading strategy set up. Don't jump in too fast. Give it a little time to do what it's going to do this morning, but don't miss the trade either. Alright, so be nimble. That's all I got for you. Okay, so like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that's all we got for now. So that's the rundown. We got to go, and be careful out there. These markets are crazy.